So South Africa has been grappling with COVID-19 for over 2 years now, but so much still remains unknown about the virus. A new report has revealed that COVID-19 can cause the brain to shrink, reduce grey matter in the regions that control emotion and memory. We speak now to Dr. Donné Minné. She's been studying the neuro-psychiatric effects of COVID-19. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Minné. Thank you so much for joining us. The study that we are speaking of, what do we know about how it was compiled and what exactly it was looking for?
Hi, Dudu. Thank you very much for having me on the show today. It's wonderful to be a guest. This has been quite a groundbreaking study in that it's the first of its kind to be able to study brain images following COVID, but based on images of the brain from participants that were taken actually before COVID. So while we have had studies that have looked at the various changes to the brain before this one, it wasn't conclusive. There was nothing really to compare change to. So what the key findings from this paper seems to be that there are, in fact, significant changes to the brain following infection from COVID. That's not necessarily dependent on the severity. They ran the analyses even by excluding some of the participants who had been hospitalized for COVID, and the findings held. But what strikes me is that it's not only areas of the brain that are involved in emotion and memory that they found that were changed, but also areas that are involved in olfaction, so the processing of smell. And I think that's quite important for us to bear in mind, because what we do know about the brain is that when you stop getting input, and that would be in the case of loss of smell, which is a widespread symptom of COVID, even in mild cases. When this happens, you do tend to see some shrinkage in grey matter of the brain. The brain is plastic, meaning that it can change and reorganize. So this shrinkage, while the findings are quite alarming, it might be that they are quite closely related to this loss of sensory input. So the real question will be, once people regain olfaction, to then try and see if some of this matter is restored. I think also what's significant about the study is that while they did find there were some cognitive deficits in the COVID group, because they obviously compared brain scans between participants who had COVID and those who didn't contract the virus. Although they did note some cognitive decline in the COVID group, it was the kind of function that that relates to, well, what they call processing speed. So how quickly you process information. They didn't find any loss of memory itself, or some of the other what we call executive functions. So that would be maybe logical reasoning or insight. So I think the real question will be to actually see in individuals who are still struggling with cognitive disturbances as a result of COVID, so people who have what we call long COVID, I think it's important to try and see if we're seeing these quite stark and alarming brain changes in that group specifically. And as far as I can tell, the study hasn't yet looked into that.
Dr. Minné, please allow me to join you there, that as you know, like you said, the study hasn't looked into that, and there's quite a number of things also that still need to be discovered and studied. But there were two interesting terms that I saw here that I'd need for you to please clarify for us. So they speak of brain fog and chemo brain. What is the difference between the two, and what does a person go through when they have that?
Okay, so there's no established difference really between the two. Brain fog is somewhat of a problematic term. It's used quite generally, but exactly what it is that researchers or clinicians are referring to when they use it is a bit unclear. But generally, it refers to problems with concentration, difficulty focusing, this kind of feeling of heaviness in the head, and some memory problems, but not to say that individuals are not able to encode information. The information's there, it's just sometimes they're not able to retrieve it. So that's brain fog, and it's been compared to chemo fog. Chemo fog is something usually patients would experience when they're going through chemotherapy. It's thought to arise from the inflammatory processes that accompany chemotherapy. And so it would make sense that maybe brain fog, which is part of the post-COVID syndrome, and because of the inflammation that COVID causes, it would make sense that these are probably quite similar conditions. But it hasn't actually been studied conclusively what the mechanisms of brain fog in long COVID are. Yeah.
Dr. Minné, thank you so much. Minné, thank you very much. That's all we can afford in terms of time. Dr. Donné Minné is with the Cape Peninsula University of Technology.